Hey, my name is Shovel, and in this video, we're going to talk about putting bass inside of a SN95 or new Edge Mustang without taking up any of your trunk space. I'm going to be kind of quick going through this for a couple of reasons. One, filming sound is always a big challenge, and I haven't worked that out just yet. I just don't know how to do it to make it as compelling as possible. You're going to hear what your phone or laptop or whatever is going to reproduce, and it's only going to sound as good as what I record. So we're going to have to just kind of do this like a show and tell. The second part is that right now in my life, I'm trying to digest through a bunch of different projects. And this is one of those projects I wanted to just get done with and move on. So it's less about creating content for YouTube today than it is about just getting projects done so I can make better content going forward in the future. So with that being said, of course, I still want to make this informative and entertaining for you. So what we're going to do is 2 different ways to put bass in these cars without using up your trunk space. I think I already said that. Anyway, let's take a look at number 1. Now, as you can see, a little bit of work has already been done here. I've lined the inside of this spare tire well with sound deadener, and that's a pretty good clue as to what's going on. I'm going to go ahead and put a subwoofer down there in the spare tire well. And you might be wondering, well, don't you need a spare tire? And I don't know. I mean, you got to ask yourself, do you really trust a 25 or 30-year-old spare tire to get you home safely? And the other part of it is that modern cars don't even come with spare tires anymore. Modern cars have something like this. That's a tire inflator kit. It's got a pump. It's got some goo in it that you stick inside of a tire. It'll get you home. And also, these are classic cars. I mean, that legally is a classic car, but these are classic cars now. I've got them insured with Haggerty, who gives you roadside assistance with your older car. And so, unless I'm out of cell phone range, got to take a hike maybe. Otherwise, I don't see a reason why I want to carry a spare tire around in the year 2024 when we have cell phones that we didn't realistically have in 1994 and 96, and we have all these services that we can count on. There's no reason to carry a tire store around with me. So I don't need a spare tire, which means I can put one of these in. That's a subwoofer. As you can see, this just sets down there in the spare tire well, and I could just wire it up and go, but of course it's not tied down, so if I go over bumps, it'll bounce around all over the place, and that won't be good for it. Plus, it's just, sitting naked up here. Anything that I load inside would go on top of those speakers and probably dent in these grills. That wouldn't be perfect for it either. So let's go ahead and fix that. First thing you'll notice is that there's a hole right here in the middle, and instead of being one big round speaker, it has 3 small speakers. These are 8-inch. And so what I can do is put this underneath it. This is the same hook that's used to tie down the factory spare tire. We're just going to use it through that hole there and the little hook in the bottom to tie this down. So there's one problem solved. Now it's tied in place. This won't start bouncing around when I go over bumps, but it still is not the greatest surface on which to load your groceries. So let's fix that problem next. I've got this wooden floor here I made out of 1x2 pine and stained blue because I thought that would be pretty. I just laid these out on the ground, and then I put the carpet on top of it, traced the outline of the carpet, and then glued it together. I did glue it together in 2 pieces to make it easier to install and remove. And the split between the 2 pieces is right where that screw sticks up for the spare tire holder. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop this in there. Then I've just got these guys right here, and they're not very elegant. This is like part of an antenna mast, and this is the original screw for holding down the spare tire. They're not elegant, but they're not permanent. You'll see why in a minute. And these are just going to hold that down. That's what I've been using for the past few months anyways. So as you can see here, now I've got a nice floor surface. It's got gaps in it so the sound can come up through it, but it's going to protect the subwoofers from any kind of luggage I put inside here. I've given up no trunk space, and I'm getting the sound I want out of it. You're not going to realistically be able to hear it through YouTube for what it sounds like, but I'm obligated. Let's go ahead and bump it and see what it does. So that's one way to add bass to an SN95 or new Edge Mustang without using up any of your trunk space. And believe it or not, this next way uses up even less trunk space. By the way, if you were curious, that rapper that we were listening to, that's Hanuman Kind out of India. I figure if he gets the YouTube royalties off this video, that's fine. He deserves it. And now I have to actually install the other stuff and uninstall this stuff because this stuff's going into a different project later on. One thing I think is going to be kind of fun is I've had this other amplifier sitting on a shelf forever, and I think it's perfect for this car. I do have a really awesome MTX amplifier in here now for this subwoofer, but that's coming out, and what's going into this is an authentic, period correct 1990s amp, and when you see it, you're going to go, holy shit, that is a 90s amp. Check this out. This is a LA Sound Sunset 100S, and I'm not sure how well you can see these pixels, but they straight up screen printed some like 90s alternative looking chicks like right on the front of this thing. And then they put the specs right in the middle of the picture, which I think is a shame. It would have looked better without those there. But is that not the most like 1990s thing in the universe? And this one's straight up like crispy. Look how perfect that is. It's not screwed up. The screws aren't all jacked up. I even have the catalog from LA Sound, and you can see here it's got all the different amplifiers that were part of that series. And I'm not sure how well that's going to show up on the camera, but every single one of them has some like straight out of a Smash Mouth video, like 90s people having a good time at the beach or whatever. And I mean, what better to go into the Rum Runner, right? Like that's perfect for this car. And so even though the MTX amp is a better quality amp, that's going to go into a different project later. That's the perfect amp for this car. As you can see, there's nothing in there anymore. I took out the amplifier, that's gone. Subwoofer's gone. Complete trunk is open. Nothing taking up any space inside the trunk. Let's go ahead and give it a listen.
Yeah, we entering the dragon fist of fury, what are you? Southside, what it do, man? From the KL, making hell break loose. Others looking too frail, taking arrows, what they do. But we fly till we die, and we don't need no parachute. I'm with the dose.
So as you can see, the whole mess is just up underneath here. Got the amplifier mounted to the bottom of the deck. It's not being asked for a whole lot. It's not actually working all that hard, so it's not going to get hot up there mounted upside down. I do have to correct this janky wiring. I do have some housekeeping that has to get done, but I just didn't have the appropriate why, and I kind of just built something. But that's going to get fixed as soon as I can find the part that I want. And the loudspeakers are mounted up underneath the deck on these little spacers. So instead of having to go in from the top like you normally have to do when you're replacing loudspeakers on these, I mounted 6x9 spacer rings to the bottom of it, and then the 6x9 loudspeakers, which are a lot larger than the stock 5x7 or 6x8 loudspeakers that were in there before. A 6x9 loudspeaker has about 90% of the surface area and volume displacement of an equivalent 8-inch speaker, which means that these are not quite as good as having a pair of 8s up under the rear deck. And it is a whole lot more bottom end than the factory speakers made without taking up any trunk space. I can still load this up with all my groceries, all my whatever I want to. Traveling, I could stick luggage back there, not even worry about it. So there you have it, 2 different ways to put some boom in one of these cars without taking up any of your trunk space whatsoever. And I know that there's probably somebody wondering, hey, what happened to your full range speakers in back? Don't you need full range back there? And I gotta ask you, when you're watching a concert, do you like face away from the stage, or do you face towards the stage and get all the, the music coming from in front of you? That's kind of how I approach listening to music in general. If I'm sitting down and I want to really listen to some music, I want it to come from in front of me. And if anything's happening behind me, it's either going to be because I'm watching a movie with like 5.1 or whatever, or else if there's a compromise, like I can't fit big old subwoofers up front, so they got to go in back. Other than that, as much sound as I can get from the front, the better. Additionally, I know there's some folks who'd rather be heard going down the road, and of course, this isn't going to be that kind of bass. If you want to go in that direction, you're going to have to put a big box and a lot of watts to it. You already know that. But I hope you had a good time watching this anyways. Thanks for watching.